Whether it's power station, factory or stadium, covering installation or maintenance, Spec, the specialist power contractor to industry.
Welcome to Rugby AM. I'm sat on beautiful Manly Beach, the ocean behind me, and I've bumped into a legend, Peter Peters, aka Zorba the Greek. Zorba, how are you, mate?
I'm good, Alex. Welcome to God's country.
Mate, it's beautiful. Tell me, firstly, there's a little beach in the background. Tell us the story about this. Is fantastic about the beach in the background.
Well, that beach in the background is a topless beach.
Oh!
It's also where Manly players celebrated their first ever grand final win in 1972, and one of the hardest party goers in that team was none other than the great Malcolm Reilly from Castleford and other places in England, and that's Shelley Beach, and we celebrated there for 14 days.
I'm going to take you back to 1972 now. The club formed in 1947. You've been involved with Manly since 1969, since the year that Man went to the moon. You've been part of the Manly club. How has the club progressed under your time as a player and obviously administrator, coaching staff? How's it progressed now to modern day?
Well, the Sea Eagles are a worldwide brand in rugby league, and we represent this area. This is the start of our beaches, north to Palm Beach. It's called the Insular Peninsula. 19 of the best beaches in the world, more world surfing champions than anyone else, but also home to the greatest rugby league club outside of the lead rhinos in the world.
We've got to say that because Gary Everton is on his first day as producer.
He's on the camera.
Behind the camera right now, the lead CEO. It's great the connection that Manly have got with Leeds, and I've seen yourself and Gary. You're great friends, aren't you?
Well, that's what rugby league can do. I mean, how lucky am I to be a poor Greek trying to find his way in a new country, and then I fall into rugby league and I have the most wonderful life, playing, broadcasting, administrating, just loving the greatest game of all. I mean, I'm fortunate. I wouldn't change one day of my life for anything. I've got two families, my own, which I love dearly,
yep,
and the Sea Eagles.
Mate, taking you back to 1972 and obviously say a Greek coming and falling into rugby. How did a Greek man fall into rugby league to start with?
Well, I got sick of being put at the end of the tuck shop line at school, so it was learn how to fight, learn how to play footy, and get a bit of respect. So that's what I did. And
you played in that first comp win in 1972. You said it was the. So you were injured in 72.
Yeah, I was. I played in 73 alongside Malcolm Reilly. Yeah.
And you said it's the toughest comp ever. Take us back to that game. What do you remember? What do you remember about it?
Well, I remember it being, and I was writing at the same time. Yeah. I was lucky enough to be a full-time professional journalist as well as player.
Yep.
And I remember writing on that game, and it was war with football boots on. It's to this day the roughest, toughest grand final in the history of the game. 26 players on the field were given. Both got given team warnings 4 times each in the first half. You could hear the bones crush. You could hear the bones breaking. Players were forced off the field to have painkillers. Malcolm Reilly was one. He was forced off the field, had some needles, came back on and said he had 15 minutes before they wore off. He took 2 players with him from the opposition as well. It was a game where we were an outstanding football side up against a side that had nothing to lose, plenty to gain. They hadn't won a competition until this year.
Cronulla.
And we knocked them off twice, in 73 and in 78. It was 11-all draw, and then we beat them 16-0 in a replay. So we're their nemesis. Without us there this year, they finally got up one. But they were captain-coached by a great Englishman in Tommy Bishop, and another powerhouse forward, Big Cliffy Watson, from, I think he played with St Helens or Wigan. And what a great player he was.
Absolutely outstanding. Some of the names you mentioned, but one in particular that stands out for us, somebody who's been on our show many times, a real friend of the show, is Mal Reilly. He's doing some coaching with our Legends team and Keith Senior. What was it like when you first met Mal Reilly? What did you think you come across back then when he came through? He's quite a quiet man, isn't he?
He was quiet until you got him angry. But I think Malcolm was the first Englishman that we saw here that that had everything about his game.
Yeah.
At the peak of his powers, tough as teak, but skillful as all hell.
Yeah.
Like to have a chip and chase in his game. We hadn't seen that in a forward. And for us to be able to just be put like little chess into place, rucks before it happened.
Yeah.
And the passes around the corner, around the back, chip over the top and regather. We hadn't seen that before. And to this day, all those years later, remains a legend of our club.
And he's well known, because I never realised when I first met him. My first kind of meeting of Mal really was as a young boy playing amateur footy in England, and someone says, right, we're going to do Malcolm's. And I never thought anything of it until I met him years later in RFL promo, and Sean O'Loughlin said to me, hey, the name Malcolm's after Mal Reilly.
Exactly.
And I'm like,
and
it's
mainly
your fault.
Today, they still do Malcolm's.
They still do Malcolm's.
Yeah.
So he's an extraordinarily fit gentleman. Even now to this day, into his latter years, he's still super fit.
Well, he was not only one of the greatest players I've ever seen and played with, he was just a tough man that didn't have to prove he was tough, but if he had to, he could. There are some legendary stories about Malcolm Reilly, which some we can tell and some we can't.
Can you tell us one or two you can tell?
Well, his first game in Sydney was against South Sydney at the Sydney Cricket Ground in the match of the day.
They were the best team at the time.
They had internationals on the reserves bench.
Yeah.
They had so many great players, and Malcolm arrived on the Thursday night, and we played on the Saturday. We're getting changed before the game in the dressing rooms at the cricket ground, which remain the same today. And he said, "Who's best player?" And I said, "Oh, Bobby Fulton." He said, "No, not us." He said, "Souths." I said, "Too many of them." He said, "Who's best player?" And I said, "Bobby McCarthy."
Yeah.
He said, "Number." I said, 10. And he said, "Who's halfback?" And I said, "Us or them?" He said, "Us." And I introduced him to Dennis Ward, our halfback. He told him to kick the ball out on the full and he would take care of the rest. So Dennis kicked out on the full. In those days, in 1973, it was a scrum back at the halfway mark, and everybody would look at the ball, not the players coming through.
Yeah.
And the referee blew his whistle for a scrum back at halfway. Only 3 or 4 cameras in those days,
Yeah.
and still black and white television.
Yeah.
So we're going a long way back. And there on the ground, I could see number 10 face down. Malcolm trotted by and said, "Right number?" and that was Malcolm's first 30 seconds in Australian Rugby League, and they carted him off and we beat them.
He's a great bloke, and forward fast into this year. Manly, you said before to me that it's the only club to win premierships in the last, is it 4 decades, 5 decades?
Last 5 decades,
Last
yeah.
5 decades. So
Yeah.
it is a special club. It's been consistent for a long time. How's the team now? How's the club now? With Trent Barrett leading you along?
Well, Trent's going to be an exciting new coach.
Yeah.
And, he's had 1 year in it, and he's probably had 4 years of experience put into that 1 year. But
Yeah.
he's got one of the legends of the game and an immortal in Bob Fulton sitting with him and helping him to get through what's going to be a difficult period. But we see him as a long-time coach. Really, when you've had 11 years of success like we've had, we've come to the stage where we've got to revitalise.
Yeah.
And we're going to do that. And I think if we can minimise the time when we're out of the finals, and 2 years is enough, we'll be back this year and rebuilding to win another competition very shortly.
And that's a similar kind of journey to Leeds. It's
It is.
unprecedented success in a golden decade with so many junior lads coming through the Leeds system, which I think is phenomenal for world sport. I don't think there's anyone else that matches Leeds as far as getting young players from the local service area in the first team and playing at a high level. They also going through a similar transition period as well.
We have great admiration for Leeds and the way they conduct themselves with dignity and loyalty and historically a great club. And some of our greatest players like Cliffy Lyons have gone there and set the rugby league world alight in England. A lot of our players that have gone over in not so, not recent times, but not so long ago, like Jamie Lyon.
Yeah.
And just what a great player with St Helens. And we're very proud of what we've achieved and what we're going to achieve. We're very proud of our image in the game and our the fact that we are widely recognised. As much the same as I think if we saw a club that we align ourselves with in England, it would be Leeds.
You've had a great career in the media as well, talking about some of the Johnny, one of the blokes who we just had a coffee with, a big supporter of Manly.
Yeah, Johnny Wilkinson.
Yeah, he was talking about when you first started broadcasting on radio, and they'd never had anything like it. This larger than life character. Tell us about when the Penrith team ran out. What were your first comments on your first show?
Oh, well, I saw them in their chocolate jerseys, and I said, "Here come the chocolate soldiers," and the touch judges were Bengal Lancers. But we made it entertaining, and not as the normal broadcast. And it's become the norm in Australia, which I'm very proud of, along with my mate Greg Hartley, the colourful referee. So it was Hollywood and Zorba. The first time we called it Wembley, there were complaints by the BBC that we were too loud, and they had to put us at the back of the broadcasters. And then when we went to Old Trafford, it was the same thing. And then suddenly we were the story, along with the Australian side, about
Hollywood and Zorba.
These two idiots from Australia that had changed the game and broadcasting out of Central Park, out of the grandstand, and including the crowd in it. And we would sing and we'd swear and we'd tell jokes, and it was just fun. It's entertainment. It's not so much. And we know our rugby league. We played it and he's refereed it. So the people could take what we said as knowing something about the game.
Yeah, and I think the word you said there is fun. We have great fun on rugby, and myself and Jonesy and everybody involved.
Well, he's a character with a head like that. He's got to be a character. And a name like that. I mean, my mother stuttered. I've got an excuse for Peter Peters. But he doesn't. That's a long name, and that's a very private school name. Jamie Jones Buchanan.
Well, he's the only private school he's from in Bramley. I don't think there's one in Bramley. I don't think there ever will be one in Bramley. He's from the Big Apple. He's really proud of it. But we're passionate about maybe getting Rugby AM onto a channel over here, maybe Fox, to give the Australians an insight into Super League. And there's plenty of fans that love the game over here. Somebody stopped me on Bondi Beach and said, "You're the guy from the English Footy Show, and we watch you on YouTube." And I think it'd be great to get Rugby onto screens over here.
We love watching the Super League. I mean, the way you play the game is better than what we're playing here at the moment.
Why is that? Tell me why.
Well, because you don't have the pressure that we've got on. I mean, everyone wants to win, and the English Super League teams want to win as much as we do here, but the pressure here and the media microscope is so intense. I mean, in Sydney itself, there's probably 30 people writing and calling the game.
Yeah.
They're all out for an exclusive. It's not so intense media-wise in England as it is here. I mean, in some places like Leeds and Wigan and Warrington, the game is part of the fabric, but in a lot of other areas it's not because of football, soccer. I mean, it's massive. So here you've got to think of it in reverse. We are the soccer in the heaviest populated city in Australia.
Yeah. It is a fantastic competition in the NRL. What it's been built to as a brand, and the value of it's huge over here for Australian sport. It is front and back page news in all the papers.
It is, but the way we're going, we can put players on in aprons.
Yeah.
Because it's become soft.
I was just going to say, has the game gone soft?
Game's gone soft. Administrators have lost the plot in trying to please the minorities.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a tough game for tough men.
Yeah.
It always has been.
Would you bring back the shoulder charge?
Well, I wouldn't allow it to hit you in the head.
Yeah, totally.
But every time a forward gets the ball off the fullback from a kick-off and he charges into the opposition, he's conducting a shoulder charge, but he's got the ball.
Yeah.
And where the difference is, I don't know.
Yeah.
But we've become too sanitised. We need to go back a little bit. People love. State of Origin was born out of. It was state against state, mate against mate, war with football boots on, and it was tough. And that's what it was built on. And even today, when you see little halfbacks running around belting forwards, knowing they're not going to get belted back, it's for pussycats.
1980, it's first State of Origin. What did you think as a player back then?
I was calling that game.
Yeah. What did you think of it? What do you think the concept would work? Or?
I was convinced it was, because
Yeah.
once Arthur Beetson put one on Michael Cronin, his Parramatta teammate,
Yeah.
we knew it was fair dinkum.
Yeah.
And to this day, it is. But the players aren't allowed to express themselves.
They hate each other, don't they?
They do. There's a real
hatred.
hate there.
Yeah.
But you can't hate somebody on the football field without letting out some adrenaline.
Yeah. I'd love to see some form of state of origin concept in the UK. The obvious one's Yorkshire, Lancashire,
Yeah.
where the clubs are buying. I'm sure Gary had commented. He's shaking his head behind the camera now. Would you think that'd work in the UK?
I don't know the rivalry enough to know. I mean, Yorkshire would have a great team against Lancashire. I think that would probably, it'd have to be really built up. It just doesn't happen. It depends on how it starts.
Yeah.
If it starts and captures the imagination, then you can go from there. But if it starts like flat lemonade, it's not going to be very successful.
I'm sure we all have to buy in. It's when Jonesy always telling me, and Gary says, an idea is only as good as the people that buy into it. It's fantastic to meet you. It's great to hear your stories. You're a colourful character. I know we stay great friends. You're now a friend of Rugby M. Thank you, Peter, for coming on. Zorba, as we're going to get you a T-shirt, get you sent over. Top man up, and Manly do with the business this year for you, sir.
Good on you, Alex. Been a pleasure, and I hope the fans in English Super League have a great season coming up.
Whether it's power station, factory or stadium, covering installation or maintenance, Spec, the specialist power contractor to industry.